You're struggling really hard playing piano with both hands at the same time, and I'm going to give you some quick and easy solutions that you can implement right now that are going to have a huge impact on your ability to play with both hands at the same time. Make sure you watch this lesson all the way through because you're going to need all of these tips working together for the best results. It's your piano teacher Tim here, and the first tip I have for you is to start looking at music in terms of verticality. Okay, so here we have this tricky measure that is the bane of my existence. This is the fugue to the toccata and fugue in D minor, if you were curious. This tip is going to be really helpful for those of us who get confused over what hand to play and when, and this is going to clear it up big time, even though it's so simple. So let's take a look at the first measure we're coming in here. So we're going to draw a vertical column. We're trying to figure out what hands we're going to start with. Well, by drawing a vertical column, we can quickly tell that our left hand has rests, and our right hand has the F and the E. Now the E is technically held over from before, but we know that we are playing those two notes together there. And then we can see by drawing another vertical column over the next note, D, that there's nothing being hit there with that D. And then coming with the C sharp, we can see that those two notes hit together by drawing a column there. And I can see that that D hits by itself. And then our final one right here that we're going to stop with is this right here with the E and the A. The D is held over. So you can see right away that by drawing these columns, you can really see what is being played at the same time. I want to quickly mention that you're going to see this tip again and again in this lesson, so make sure you remember it. Tip number 2, if it's too much for you to process the notes, the rhythms, the key signatures, all this stuff, I want you to simplify, simplify, simplify. And let me show you what I mean. So basically, we're going to forget about a lot of the tricky things in this measure here. If it's too much to think about the rhythm and play with both hands at the same time, I want you to try focusing on the two-hand coordination first and leave the rhythm for later. So here we have an example here, and this measure is also the bane of my existence because it's the same piece, because I have to hit this D here and move all the way down in time in 16th notes to be able to play the rest of the measure. And one thing I did to get this measure is I said, all right, I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to forget about the rhythm, being able to do that in time. I'm just going to focus on hitting the right notes, and I'm only moving to the next note once I know that I've played the first set of notes correctly. And you can actually use tip number 1 in conjunction with this, looking at things in terms of verticality. Only when you've played something correct in a vertical column do you begin to move it over and play the rest of it. So I told you that that tip would come back, and it did. Tip number 3 that makes a huge difference, and like I said in the intro, this one has nothing to do with the piano at all, and that is to fix your bench. If you're lopsided on the piano, you're going to be playing lopsided, and it's going to make a huge difference in your playing in a really bad way. So make sure that every time you come up to the piano, you readjust your bench. You'd be surprised how it gets out of shape when you get up for things. Readjust your bench, make sure you're sitting even with the piano, and make sure that you are at a comfortable distance so that you can play at your very best. Tip number 4 is to play as slow as you need to go to be able to play through a piece hands together. So if you've been working on a piece for a while and you feel like your hands are starting to fall apart and you're having trouble, the very first thing you should do is slow it down. And I think the more familiar we are with a piece, the more the tendency is to go as fast as we can, or as fast as we think that it should sound. But never be against slowing things back down so that you can process all the notes. And remember, if the rhythm was tripping me up, I would simplify it back down, concentrating only on the notes, going as slow as I need to go. Before I give you the last 2 tips, which are arguably the best, I want to let you know that this channel is all about giving practical piano advice to everyday people. And if that's a mission that sounds good with you and resonates with you, make sure you subscribe. You have all notifications turned on so you get notified when that new lesson comes out. Tip number 5 is to make sure you understand all the basics before you start putting things hands together. Some of these basics may include notes, rhythms, key signatures, things like that. Now, I did say in an earlier tip that if those things confuse you too much, to focus solely on the two-hand playing. But I also want to let you know that the more of that stuff that you can get figured out ahead of time, the easier it will be for you to play hands together. Tip number 6 is that if you haven't been practicing exercises specifically for developing both hands, you need to start doing that today. I'm just going to give you a short list of these. We're actually going to talk about these in a future lesson coming up, so look out for that one. But some things that you want to be starting with are scales, arpeggios, Hanon, and Czerny. If you're interested in those exercises, I'm going to make sure to include those in the description just for you. Okay, I have an assignment for you. What I want you to do is I want you to write down all of the tips that I have for you today, and I want you to keep that list close by where you practice. And before you practice, I want you to go down the list of each of those things to make sure that you're hitting on each one and that you're actually putting this stuff into practice. You're going to want to make sure you watch this lesson next because it is two-hand exercises you want to learn in order that you can make the best progress possible over the coming months and years. And if that lesson's not ready yet, this lesson you want to watch next, which is the things that I wish I knew about when I first started learning piano. It's always a good one to watch, and if you pay attention to these, you're going to save yourself a lot of headaches. So practice well, be well. It's your piano teacher, Tim here, and I'll see you next time. Rock on.
In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun.